Hello everyone, and welcome to TBR's webcast, Thinking Outside the Box, Trends in High-Performance Appliance Adoption and Future Opportunity. My name is Allison Crawford, Marketing Manager here at Technology Business Research, and I will be your host for today's session. We are hope that you are able to join us today for a discussion around the current trends in IT appliances and adoption. Before I hand this over to Stuart and Alan, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items to help you get the most out of today's session. First, we will be recording today's session and posting it to the TBR YouTube channel if you want to watch the presentation again or pass it along to your colleagues. This is an active session, so we encourage you to ask us any questions that arise during the webcast. I'm collecting your questions throughout the session and post them to our analysts at the end of the presentation. Third, we'll be sending out the slides to everyone registered for today's webcast within 24 hours of the conclusion of the presentation. Now, without further ado, let me introduce your presenters for today, Stuart Williams and Alan Kranz. So let's get it. Stuart?
My name is Stuart Williams. I'm the Practice Director of the Software Practice at Technology Business Research, or TBR. I'm going to be joined by my colleague, Alan Kranz, who's a software analyst in our practice. And together we'll be presenting the findings around customer adoption and opportunities for vendors in high-performance appliances on our second annual Appliance Adoption Research Study. 3 points for today's webinar. First one is high-performance appliances are now an accepted option for customers to use across multiple workloads that we tested in our research study. The point is that buyers report stringent requirements as they examine high-performance appliances for adoption, but buyers look past some of the key cost concerns when they be able to drive optional and ROI benefits that result from a successful deployment of a high-performance appliance. And the addition of the high-performance appliance market brings with it abundant opportunities for vendors to not only bring additional appliances to market, but to also address the opportunity for selling hardware, software, and services around the box, maximize the customer's return on investment. First, our appliances. We have engineered systems or purpose-built devices that are integrated hardware and software devices that, in general, or most of the time, address a single workload. So, appliances are packaged, integrated platforms of hardware and/or software that are designed to deliver and work against a predefined service or workload that is functionality through an application-specific interface, and that generally provide little or no access to the underlying and support components of the device. We also have different families of appliances. In this particular study that we've just completed, we're looking at high-performance appliances, the combination of integrated hardware and software. There are other families that we've examined in other studies, including pure hardware appliances, hard software and services appliances, software appliances that are integrated software packages, and finally, and most disruptively, virtual appliances that are integrated packages delivered as a virtualized hypervisor. In our study, TBR examined the high-performance appliance market. We want to understand this market from the point of view of the customers, drove their adoption, and which vendors they were purchasing from, the satisfaction with those vendors, as well as the business models that these vendors are employing to take advantage of this opportunity. We look for 4 key workloads that are being addressed in this space right now: data, BI analytics, OLTP, and private cloud. And several offerings across exemplar vendors that are providing high-performance appliances in one of these different 4 workloads. Vendors had offerings across these categories. Some vendors, for example, PCE, only had one appliance that appeared, that being in the private cloud segment. We conduct 25 in-depth interviews and 300 online surveys of users of these high-performance appliances who are located in the U.S., Canada, U.K., France, and Germany between May and August 2011. These respondents were all employed by market or larger firms, either 1,000 employees or up, or 500 employees and up in the U.S. and in Western Europe, respectively. So to point, high-performance appliances are a growing and accepted delivery option. One of the first to understand around the high-performance space was why did customers choose to purchase an appliance when there are many other sourcing options available for them to address that particular workload. So in questions that we developed, for each one of the workloads, we asked customers how they chose to address that workload. What was the strategy that they used? And while several folks chose to remain with the current systems that they had in place and not make any new purchases, there were 4 categories where folks made investments against one of these workloads. Original sources that folks use to address these workloads are either self-assembled components, and this is where the majority of purchasing has been and continues to remain, and outsourcing, which is at the other end of the continuum. You see kind of 2 very divergent delivery options that vendors can use to take advantage of to gain access to customers in the market space. One is, and the other one are pre-built appliances, or high-performance appliances, as we call them, that are entering into the marketplace, are adopting them, and using them in a targeted way to add to their capabilities. Strong adoption, selection against the workloads, data warehousing, business analytics, and OTP. Private cloud is still in early days, and we see stronger adoption there for cloud-delivered private cloud solutions than purpose-built appliances. Adoption there is strong. We see that ramping up and gaining strength going in the future as more and more of these types of devices are brought to market. What we wanted to understand was whether or not this was the first appliance purchase among buyers, or if they had previous experience, and their level of comfort with the concept of appliance became a critical factor that we understood through our research. We asked about whether they had never purchased appliance or whether they had several in their data centers. But overall, we found that nearly 70% of respondents who purchased a high-performance appliance had previously purchased some form of an appliance to use in their data center. This indicates a lead edge or a leading indicator for vendors who are selling appliances. Early on conversations, they can begin to identify the comfort level among buyers with an appliance-driven approach. Customers who didn't purchase an appliance and were non-purchasers for high-performance appliances really stated that they believed that they could build themselves to any solution that they needed. They were very self-described as self-reliant. Other vendors, other buyers were able to get past that position where they couldn't build themselves, and were able to accept a prepackaged solution and then integrate that into their data centers to provide them with the functionality to address that specific workload. Final things we wanted to look at in this study was how are high-performance appliances viewed when they're brought in and put against that particular workload. So when we look at problem awareness, we want to understand that scenario. Is it a rip-and-replace scenario, or is it a more incremental wave-like approach? We're bringing in an appliance and we're making incremental changes to the data center to address a workload. So nearly 70% of customers who are buying high-performance appliances believe that these appliances extend their existing IT tools and processes rather than to rip and replace them. So there is like a cog inside an existing machine. You want to drop this appliance into an existing data center, integrate it, and begin to shift the workloads from existing systems to these high-performance appliances. And this begins to open up opportunities that we're going to touch on later in our presentation. For those who were doing rip and replace, we found it was really less than 10% of our respondent base. And these folks were really the ones who were doing strategic investments, who needed to make a leapfrog investment from an inadequately performing system to something that was going to deliver them the level of either data processing or insight or data management or cloud capacity that they could not achieve in any other way. So, introduction to some of the drivers and overall behavior around the adoption of high-performance appliances. We're going to a little bit of a deeper dive into the process and the key drivers in both appliance selection and vendor selection. I'm going to turn the call over to my colleague, Alan Krantz, who's going to address the balance of our presentation.
Great. Thanks, Stuart. So this section I wanted to move into why appliances. So if we go on to the next. So we went with how appliance adopters get to yes. So if viewers out there, we wanted to start there, look at, for those people, those 80% of people we spoke with who hadn't adopted high-performance appliance, we wanted to capture why and really establish firmly what the barriers are out in the market today preventing broader adoption of these high-performance appliances. And it really came down to cost. There's a perception out in the market that these devices are high performance, but also very costly and expensive up front in terms of using an appliance to address these workloads. So other people who hadn't adopted, the upfront price is really the major factor preventing them from taking that leap and using an appliance to address one of these 4 high-end workloads. That is also the availability of existing resources. That was the third most frequently cited. And really a situation where a lot of customers can't justify the cost to go out and purchase a net new device when they have existing resources on hand that they can continue to configure themselves and address their workload needs. Now, in terms of moving those adopters past these hurdles, one of the big things that we saw, as Stuart alluded to, was some prior experience with appliances. So getting some familiarity with what costs are, what the benefits are, and what some of those trade-offs are in terms of using appliances to address different IT workloads. And then beyond that, we saw, in terms of adoption drivers, some of the key benefits of appliances overall. Get real-time access to your data, having enhanced security, get some of the TCO benefits that come along with having a pre-built, pre-scoped, pre-optimized appliance that can come in and very rapidly deliver operational cost savings through the IT department. So with those in hand, we look at, with the decision criteria, ultimately, for those folks that did use appliances in these 4 workloads, what were the factors that tipped the balance for them to make that purchase? An interesting thing was cost still shows up. However, it's been tucked in below some of the performance benefits that are really the value that customers get through appliances. So looking at flexibility, performance, security, all those benefits in the end really outweighed any cost drawbacks that may have been associated with appliances for those folks that went ahead and adopted across these 4 workloads. I want to take a little bit deeper look at, we discussed the benefits somewhat, but across all providers, we wanted to see really what the specific benefits were driving adoption out in the market. security, this is really a universal must-have table stake, really for any of the workloads. We've looked at both appliance and cloud option, and security is somewhat of a must-have. Customers need to feel comfortable with that, then move on to evaluate other criteria in terms of making the final decision. In terms of cost comes in, cost is really not the deciding factor we saw for how adopters are using their appliances. It really comes down to balancing cost in, certainly, but looking at the performance benefits and unique attributes of the appliance that can deliver value for their business rather than focusing purely on cost. What we saw in terms of what's driving adoption and overall satisfaction with the offerings is that it's not as much only about the offerings themselves, it's about the breadth of the portfolio that the vendor can offer. So when customers make an appliance purchase, they're having a certain level of comfort with that vendor, and they want to have other options in terms of both within workloads having different levels of offerings so that they can fit the right configuration to their needs, and having that ability to cross over into other workloads. After built up that comfort in a certain area, they want to be able to expand how appliances are used within their business and do that preferably with that same vendor. Provide just some more insight into the barriers to adoption and the drivers of purchase. And I think the key kind of important buying insight here is that a lot of the barriers reside within the IT department. This is a change for them in terms of how solutions are sourced. They need to get more comfortable with that, get more skills in order to manage these devices, and really change part of their culture in terms of having pre-integrated devices where they're locked into some configuration, they're ceding some control over the exact specs and configuration of the solution in exchange for some of the operational benefits and performance benefits that can be received through having that pre-integrated device. And then the benefit, one that was called out very clearly, was this centralization. So having something on site that can consolidate multiple existing resources, provide some centralized access and performance benefits through that process of consolidation. Within these whole questions we went in with, and we wanted to really dive into in terms of what the customer perception was out there. So the one we have here is time to value. First appliance study, we included some of the lower end devices, and for those, the time to value was a really important and critical factor in terms of customer purchasing. The ability to kind of drop it in, get it running very quickly within a day, an hour or so, was part of the overall value proposition for those devices. We tested this with the high performance workloads. We saw in terms of what the customer expectation was in terms of the ease of installation and getting up and running. Around customers are more willing to wait with these high performance appliances to get full value from their purchase. So time value fell kind of middle of the road in terms of the attributes, with more of the performance and value and real optimization benefits being what we wanted to focus on. So they're willing to spend some additional time in order to make sure that they're really getting the best value they can from their purchase. And we saw liberal use of outside resources. So a amount of the customers feel like they're willing to bring in consultants, work with the vendor, purchase that upfront pre-planning services, so that it's surprises, and they have the skills on hand in order to really get the full value out of their appliance purchase. So opportunity for SIs and providers to come in and help customers with that throughout the purchase life cycle in the early stages. The other key we wanted to evaluate as part of the study was the trade-off customers are making in terms of their ability to customize the solution with some of the benefits that come with having a pre-built integrated device. So in that sphere of adopters was that 80% of them were willing to accept the configuration as is. Now the important part of that statement is that we're willing to accept. When we went to measure this, we knew there was going to be a spectrum ranging from, this is perfect, if we did it ourselves, it would be exactly the same, up to that spectrum where actually we're satisfied that they decided to seek some customization, or they fell in that category of non-adopters that chose to go with a different IT deployment method. Along the spectrum, a majority were satisfied enough to go with the standard configuration. 20% we dug around and figured out, within that sphere of people who opt for some type of variation from the standard configuration and specifications, they were really satisfied. You have the quote there from a Teradata customer saying that, look, 8% of it was great. We needed this small tweak in that 20% so that it was really a good fit for our business, but we still went with the appliance with this small tweak. It met our use case. Customers appear very satisfied, taking the standard configuration, using that to meet a majority of their needs, and accepting that trade-off as part of the overall appliance value proposition. So with the purchasing driver, we wanted to move into that, where we see the market evolving, where we see the vendor opportunities really developing around the device, provide a lot more value around the box. We'll start with kind of a scorecard for where customers that we spoke with as part of the study are today in terms of their satisfaction and what their future purchasing plans are. Checklist, real security is a must-have, and that's largely being met, as well as the performance benefits. Customers are fairly sold in terms of using appliances, getting performance value out of those that justify the purchase and have made them adopters across these 4 workloads. Beyond that, we see a lot of opportunity in terms of what can be delivered in addition to the performance value through the devices. And that's in the form of support. This is where we saw, higher levels of satisfaction. Clearly, there's a gap between the customer perception and the value proposition of appliances being simple to support than traditional IT deployment methods. Pre-built feature, optimization, and coordination, whether it's between multiple vendors or through one vendor, in terms of how the hardware and the software support is delivered, having some intelligence on the back end. They feel that that experience should be more signed and more simple than it is out in the market today. That's the first step in terms of providing value around the box. Cost. Now, this was an interesting one because what we saw there was not so much reduction in purchase price or discounting, but helping them demonstrate value that justifies the cost is where we saw customers really for vendor assistance, helping them in the IT department map the performance benefits that they're very satisfied with to objectives and making that business case is where we see the most opportunity in terms of allowing customers to justify the cost of appliances and focus on the business benefits rather than a pure list price comparison. So, in terms of we ask people, you've made one appliance purchase. How does that impact your purchasing of appliances? And overwhelmingly, 75% said the experience overall was positive enough so that they give preference to their current vendor in terms of additional purchases or purchases for new workloads. And only said that after their first experience with a high-performance appliance, that they would be less likely to purchase another appliance from that same provider. So, recognizing some of the opportunity we see for evolving beyond the box, and the two bullets really speak to current opportunity as the market stands today. And we still see a lot of opportunity focusing on the performance benefits of appliances, helping justify the cost, and providing flexibility for those customers that fall in that 20% that have some unique specific needs that aren't met by the standard configuration. You can really provide a lot of value by a little bit of flexibility that helps map to that 20% with unique needs. And evolving beyond the box, that's really where we see the most benefit in terms of market from a performance-centric standpoint to a business value-centric standpoint, and really sensing appliances position in the key delivery spectrum for these 4 workloads, but really more broadly across the market as well. How make that business case is where we see the most opportunity, and that comes from not only delivering a lot of performance with the box, which is a lot of what's driving the market today, but provide clear mapping, the upfront consulting services, so that it's really a business value proposition rather than an interesting and performance-centric technique for the IT department to deploy across these 4 different workloads. So here we want to break the recommendations and kind of the insights across the 4 different workloads that we looked at. And workloads, we segment them with warehousing and business analytics being most mature. So we'll start diving into those. With data warehousing, so this is overall we really saw as a technical-driven market, and right now it's the best fit with the data warehousing space. We saw the levels of satisfaction in this segment from customers, so they feel like it's a technical-driven workload. The appliances are a great fit in terms of what the needs are there. Opportunity we see continuing to segment the portfolios, provide that variety that customers are looking for to make sure that the tier they choose is the best fit for their business. But to help them make that cost justification in terms of why appliances are the right fit for that workload. Business analytics, although this is one of the more mature segments we looked at, we saw a noticeable gap in terms of the satisfaction between data warehousing and business analytics. That highlights some of that business value gap that we've been talking about. In terms of data warehousing is great, it's very technical, but when you start to move into the value that's encapsulated in the business analytics space, there's in terms of how appliances are really the best choice for deploying that IT workload. So we see more opportunity both to bundle with data warehousing, provide transition within one vendor, starting with warehousing, really building up that satisfaction, using that as a logical next step to move into business analytics while maintaining that vendor comfort that the customer has established with digital experience in the data warehousing space. Now, with the OLTP and private cloud, these are really emergent workloads that we see a lot more ambiguity, both in terms of customer expectations and how vendors are going to market in this space. So we saw a lot fewer offerings on the vendor side. We expect that to continue to evolve, to be built out, and on the customer side, to get more experience in these two spaces, to have defined opinions about what their expectations are, who's really meeting those, and what they see as gaps in terms of functionality or options they would like to see included in those appliances. So we see a lot more evolution to come both on the vendor and customer side with the OLTP and private cloud workloads. So we're going to really wrap up and summarize the opportunity that we see in the high-performance appliance space. So on the left of the slide, about the recipe we see in terms of getting the right value in the business model together to address customer concerns in this space. So with the ROI, this is going to be a critical piece of customer buying. Even the market evolves 5 years out. Cost is always going to be something that customers need to consider and justify in terms of demonstrating that return on investment that will justify the purchases. Moving beyond gets into satisfying business requirements and really starting with evolving the support. Both somewhat unrealistic customer expectations in terms of support, and more coordination that needs to happen on the vendor side so that satisfaction in this area increases. So we really meeting in the middle in terms of what's realistic in terms of support for these devices, and then improving the delivery on the vendor side. And we really see in terms of evolving this market from performance-centric to business value-centric is improving the delivery of both service and the support, satisfying customer business requirements rather than focusing more on the technical side of the value proposition. We see escalating as the market evolves over time. So starting with just selling in at the low end of the portfolio, get customers familiar with the benefits and drawbacks of appliances, how to be used within their IT sourcing needs, regardless of workload. It's about getting them started and comfortable with the overall device. And we see that as an opportunity both for direct providers or those high-performance providers can come in and capitalize on that first customer experience, regardless of whether it was high performance or a lower-end device. See is, and this really ties back to the ROI value test, demonstrate that firmly enough so that those 80% of adopters who are largely held back by cost today, those hurdles come and they can get started using appliances across one of these 4 IT workloads. So of the people we spoke with, only 20% had adopted. That really leaves 80%, a huge market in enterprise space that are potential targets for this, and really could see a lot of benefits using appliances as a delivery mechanism across these workloads. Customers are established in this space, leveraging that preference for existing vendors to grow the share of wallet, to grow their footprint within these accounts, both as their capacity needs expand and they add additional devices within existing workloads, transition and use appliances for different workloads within their environments. That ability to sell in with warehousing, move over to business analytics, really provide a breadth of offerings that customers can use to standardize on a single vendor and really drive a lot of value through the comfort that comes with that initial experience, in their subsequent experiences to maximize that share of wallet. So after we've, and I'll come to agree that appliances have become a viable delivery option across the 4 workloads that we looked at. And the devices is really overcoming a lot of the cost concerns that remain a barrier in the market today. And then the opportunity that's going to evolve as customers move beyond, performance-centric needs and buyers towards broader concerns that really get back to business value and justify the ROI that's delivered through these appliances for the business. I'll hand it back over to Allison, and we can go through any questions.
Great. Thank you. So we've had a few questions come in from the audience. First one was, what would you propose be part of a data warehousing appliance? Just storage and server and operating system? Does it need to have is it integrated, or does it need to have an integration with an analytics application?
This is Stuart. I think I'll take a first cut at this and Helen jump in. The component value on data warehousing service is around organizing information first and foremost, right? So being able to collect and store and find information on requirement is the first requirement for building out an appliance in those areas. So you make sure that you have processing and capacity requirements for the size and scale of that workload. Now, Alan did allude to the next step, which is, well, what do you do with that information when it's received? And we do see some emerging kind of joint appliances that are coming to market right now that begin to merge kind of data warehousing and analytics. And it's being done in a couple of different ways. Some is through devices are doing this through just high-performance computing. Other vendors are coming to market with solutions that use kind of novel memory technologies to be able to do this. This is two sides of the same coin. When you're being inundated with information, you need to be able to find independent pieces of information from your business in a timely way. And the other side of that is you need to be able to sense new patterns, new trends in information that you weren't able to, that you either weren't looking for before, or that you were previously unable to have the capacity or capability to find. So we think that there are of maturity going through the marketplace in terms of the connection between BI analytics and data warehousing. Not to plug ourselves too much, but we also have a study going on right now looking at that. And so hopefully in another couple of months we'll be coming back to do another presentation. We'll be able to provide some more color to you around that.
Yeah. So in addition to that, I think looking at some of the customer feedback we received as part of the study, so obviously with cost and integration as one of the key barriers, a combined device, implementing data warehousing and business analytics at the same time could have some impact, obviously in terms of the cost, but also in terms of the, the IT culture and the skills needed to integrate that effectively, which is what we see most customers wanting to do. So obviously that increases that step up, could be somewhat of a barrier. However, that is that there is a preference for having the ability to transition over to new workloads within the same provider. So I think, optimal balance is probably having the base data warehousing device, but having the hooks that are there to enable an e-transition if the customer reaches a point, either, purchase the data warehousing appliance or at some future point to have those integration points there to enable the transition to that new workload, while staying with the same vendor and the same data warehousing platform.
The question we have is, do you see appliances eroding traditional IT delivery?
That's a very good question. I think if we jump back in our slide deck, we have one of the early slides that I had talked about the different ways that people are using to source against workloads. So when we look at the roughly 20% of people who are buying high-performance appliances, in the enterprise space, the non-adopters of those using other techniques to the needs of that workload. And so, the majority of folks were looking at the method, which is they buy a bunch of boxes, they buy a bunch of software, they do some software, they do some integration in their data center. And early leaders start reporting out success, and the real business benefits come out for the high-performance appliance. We believe that a portion of the folks who are currently building their own solutions will become more comfortable with building these purpose-built devices or the high-performance appliances, and to begin to integrate them into their purchasing plans. That portion will begin to switch. We do see, again, another portion of this in the sourcing decision is to say, well, I want to outsource how this works, and we see a growing population of largely MSPs, being able to step in and provide solutions here to some degree for these workloads. And those vendors themselves are going to need more flexible, more workload-tuned devices. So there's another, obviously sell-to market for the vendors on these devices. But in terms of the end customers themselves, we see a major component here being realization of the willingness to buy unique individual components, like the auto parts store and buying the hubcaps and the tires and the spark plugs. They can just go buy an automobile. Sometimes you might want to build your own car, but there aren't a lot of people today who do that. So, for certain core business function workloads, that the ability to buy an appliance that delivers against that workload in a highly tuned and optimized way is a very strong and compelling purchasing argument.
And the other thing with this cannibalization question is, with OTP and private cloud, you can see those are the highest number of people who are not addressing that today. So these are emergent workloads for a fair number of customers, and what the Appliance is doing, in tandem with cloud, is providing an easier way for them to get started addressing these workloads. So it's something that's pre-built, pre-integrated. A fair amount of work is done for them. That it's an accelerator for them to get in, get started addressing these workloads in a way that isn't too onerous on their IT department, and something that they can quickly adopt and for less front cost compared with completing themselves and starting from the ground up.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question, Allison.
Sure. So the last one we're going to get to is, based on your experience and research, what is the most successful or practical go-to-market solution for appliances? Is it ISVs, software providers like Microsoft and Oracle, or others?
The most go-to-market strategy, we're going to use the consultant's response here and talk about having it say, it depends. The relation between the vendor and the workload is a key consideration among the end customers for permission to play. So a vendor has a strong, say, hard bet, but not have a reputation for, say, for software. And the solution on the go-to-market there is to use what we call an ecosystem approach. With a partnership with a provider of equal stature and capabilities, and build a joint solution, package it under a single SKU, and bring that to market under a joint go-to-market. Other vendors who have very strong software and hardware portfolios who are working to create integrated devices. The market in their case is these customers still largely direct. Those see the beginnings in lower end of this for a channel play And we think the play is both a down market evolution of the high performance vendors, but also an evolution of the traditional vendors who have been delivering appliances all along, kind of below this high performance category, who have sold their appliances through channel partners for a long time. So it's the ability to take what might other be commodity hardware, adding very IP layer and a single user interface, direct that against a specific IT problem, workload, or business case, and be able to deliver that through the channel. It gives the vendor, in the case of an integrated product, huge market leverage, because the channel partner is really taking the market risk and getting to the customer and the closure points. Finally, when we look at things like cloud, particularly by the cloud appliances, we look at the MP and the service provider market, because as you see in our sourcing, cloud is very strong. Devices that prepackage and allow providers to be able to buy, or companies are going with their own cloud infrastructure inside their own data centers to purchase capacity in single units, be able to build that out over time is, again, another strong either direct to customer or through the service provider community way of monetizing the appliance platforms.
Yeah. And so I think at this point what we saw was, through technology delivery for a lot of the customers we spoke with, these are high performance, high need workloads, complex workloads that they really want a fairly direct relationship with the provider today. We'd see some SI involvement. Really, the main appliance provider, whether that's ISV or whether it's an integrated vendor, a lot of the services and the assistance customers use to implement these devices. So, as familiarity and comfort with this delivery mechanism increases, I think that's when we see more opportunity for channel involvement through SIs and other partners. But at this point, they still want that fairly direct relationship with the provider as they build up experience in this space.
So we'd like to wrap up this webinar. Thank all of our participants and attendees for being online with us today. If you check the screen, you'll see my and Alan's contact email addresses and contact information is on the screen right now. Thank you very much. Please reach out to us if you have any additional questions. And this webinar will be posted for replay on the TBR YouTube channel. So, thank you very much. Have a great day.